Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about Holdfast North Africa 41 to 42 because in the last video I talked about Holdfast Tunisia, both from Worthington, and this is quite a different game in many ways and that I'll come to explore in this video, but also has a lot of shared sort of game mechanics. Back of the box, 2 players, suitable for solitaire play. It is a block game, so and it doesn't have a solitaire AI system, so it's suitable for solitaire, as in you're going to be playing both sides, and you're not going to have that fog of war that you would have on a 2-player game. Playing time 1 to 2 hours. Yep, I would agree with that. There's 2 scenarios. You can easily play this game in 2 hours. Complexity 3 out of 10. Yeah, broadly speaking, would agree with that as well. So in terms of components, you get a play rate card. To talk about this first. It's useful in that it has all the reinforcement on the card, which is great. Tells you about different units, the resource points, which I'll come to, and the types of terrain. On Tunisia, the terrain was actually on the board, which I like, I'll say. It's not a big deal that it's not on the board, but it's useful. I always find to have as much information on the board as possible. That's just a personal preference. The rulebook, let's have a look at this. So again, not too many pages of rules. I think there are, let's have a quick look, 7 pages, of which the last page is designer notes and strategy. And then the final page are the 2 different campaign setups. So not a huge amount of rules for this game system. If you haven't watched the other video that I did on the Holdfast game, it is a very straightforward system to play and learn. All the mechanics are very straightforward, I would say. I think probably one of the I don't like to use the word simple because I think it's misleading. It's one of those game systems that you can read the rule book in like half an hour, I guess. Place some blocks out onto the board, learn how movement works, learn how combat works, learn how outer supply works, and away you can go. So you can sort of read the rules and lay everything out in an evening and play a game comfortably in an evening. That's how I more prefer to describe it, because the rules themselves, the mechanics themselves are, yes, most people would describe them as simple. They have an element of depth to it, which I think is why I don't like to use the word simple too much. The rule book, I found it pretty straightforward to read. I've never had any problems when in this game system of reading the rule book and then playing the game and going backwards and forwards to the rule book a lot. Never really found that. So it's quite seems quite well written to me. Very clear. There is an example. There's a couple of examples of play. I think there's less examples of play in this rulebook compared to the Tunisia game in the same system, maybe. And actually, I find examples of play incredibly useful. So yeah, there you go. Nicely produced, very short, not going to take too much reading, and very straightforward. So let's have a quick look at the blocks. This is a wooden block game. The blocks are nice. I've had this game quite a few years now and played it a bunch of times, so they're quite hard wearing. Stickers go on quite easy. Just takes you a little bit of time. There are a huge number of blocks in the game to sticker up, and they sticker only on one side. So normally when you're playing a game against an opponent, if you're playing 2-player, you have the unit facing towards you and the back facing towards your player, and it creates that really nice fog of war effect that block games, these type of games, do really well. Because with the video, I've laid the blocks down so we can see them all, and I've played this game both 2-player and solitaire. And the last time I played it just before making this video was solitaire, so that's at the forefront of my mind. But the blocks are great, very easy to read. The blocks have all the information on them, their health, I'll call it. So on this version of the game, it's 3, 2, 1, for example, on this block. So full health is 3, and you rotate it when it takes a casualty down to 2, and so forth. But they're very easy to read, and you have the number of dice that you would be rolling in combat. For example, 3 dice for this count for this block. The number that the enemy need to get on their dice rolls, which is a 5 to inflict a damage on this block, and the movement points on the block as well. So yeah, the blocks are really nice. Actually, the finish on the paint is nice as well. And obviously, one of the great things about block games is they have that sort of tactile feel to them, which a lot of people really enjoy, myself included. So in terms of the map, maps are mounted map. Again, I've played this game a whole bunch of times, and I've had it for a few years now, so it's wearability, durability is probably the word I should use. It's pretty good, very nice in fact. The map is just a little bit that's outshot here, but basically it's 4 of these sections, if you will, long. So it's a thin, long map, and the readability of the map is high, so it's very clear what the contents of the hexes are in terms of their terrain types, and the terrain is cumulative in the game, which is important. Very clear where the roads are marked, which again has a gameplay impact. You have your turn counters at the top here, and you also have the RP resource point counter at the top here again, which is very clear. You also have some one of the charts here. It just reinforces the core mechanics around the combat, the numerics of that here. Very readable, nicely done. Finish is really good. High durability. So yeah, that's definitely one of the really nice things about this game is that it looks good, and the blocks are great, and it's very readable. It's very playable from that perspective. Just going to talk about some of the things I like about this game, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges people have about the game, and I want to talk about that specifically. But first up, straight out the box, as I said, the components are great. The mechanics, so combat's very straightforward, movement is very straightforward, the supply rules are very straightforward. If you're familiar with war games, block war games, this is a very straightforward game to understand. If you've not played a war game before, for the most part, I would say this is pretty good for a newcomer, actually. There aren't too many sort of concepts in this that are hard to grasp, I would say. So it's got an easy entry point as a game. Does not take long to get into, to read the rule book, to place out some blocks and start playing the game. The other thing I like about this game is that, as you can see here, this is sort of a midpoint I've set up for one of the campaigns, and there is quite a good rich narrative of this period of history. So in this example, the Axis powers have come in from the left here, made their way through and taken over Tobruk, and the Allies had a bit of a fight in defending that, but the Axis powers were able to take Tobruk, and then the Allies have started to come onto the board and trying to push the Axis back. So it's quite a nice narrative that plays out. That's quite good. I've read quite a few books on the North Africa campaign. It's a period of history that I really like. So it has that sort of connection with history, which is great. I would describe that connection of history as quite light, if I'm being honest. That's not a bad thing. You can play this game in a couple of hours in the evening, so you can play the North Africa campaign easily, and I mean easily, in a couple of hours in an evening, and that includes setting up. That includes just skimming over the rules again if you haven't played for a while. So it has that going for it. It has that immediacy, I would say, and an ease of play, and so forth. Now, one of the challenges of the game, I think, looking at people's comments on Board Game Geek that people have, is that by the nature of that period of history, the game is somewhat unbalanced if you're looking for a game that has a good balance for the two players. The long and short of it is the Axis powers are going to have a hard time of it. And that's a common complaint of this game, is that if you're playing with a friend, whoever's playing the Axis, they're in for a much harder game than the player who's playing as the Allies. I mean, that's just a general sort of issue that people have with the game. And I'll come to how you can address that in a second. When I'm playing the game Solitaire, that's actually straight out of the box. That was never really an issue for me, because I'm playing the game on my own. I'm playing for the narrative. I'm playing to see how far the Axis powers could push. Could they take Tobruk? Could they hold Tobruk? Could they then push on and take the other objectives, being these key marks in red with Alexandria, which you can't see. It's just off the camera, but basically slightly more to the right. How far could they go? What piece of history could be changed by this playing of the game? So from my point of view, playing the game Solitaire, and that's how I like to play these type of games Solitaire, for me that unbalance wasn't really a thing. But for a lot of people, I do understand, when I've played the game two players, I've always played the Axis, because I played the game before, and it's definitely it's technically an unbalanced game, I would say, out of the box. So it's worth noting that there are, thankfully, some great ideas on Board Game Geek around how to make this game a lot more playable. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. So in the North Africa, Holdfast North Africa section on the Geek, you can go to forums rules, and I've focused on this thread from Matthew Luby, who is also the designer of the Holdfast Tunisia game. And this is just an example of some ideas that you can try in the game to make it a much more enjoyable experience. And these are ideas that I agree with. I've played the game with these, and they're great. So, for example, and this is one of the key ones for me actually, is in the game, when an eliminated unit, you can bring them in back into the game really quickly by paying resource points for them to be replaced, which is one of the key areas of how you pay resource points. But in this idea, you have to wait. You pay the price to bring them back, but you have to wait 4 turns before they actually come back onto the board, which is great and really changed the game for me. I would really recommend that if you get this game, or you've got this game and haven't played it in a while and sort of written it off, this I felt was a big game changer. And he lists out a few other points here. We don't need to go through each one by one, but they're great and they add a lot. And I think it's testament to Matthew's ideas here, and not just his ideas. There are other people that have contributed different ideas to this game that really have helped. So, for example, there was another comment that I read earlier about not using the rules for Malta, which generally hinders the Axis player. And I tried that, and I thought that's quite interesting. That worked quite well to help rebalance that part of the game. So what I would say is there's a lot of good ideas on the Board Game Geek, and it shows how, as a community of gamers and designers, people are prepared to share different ideas and experiences of how to make the game better. And I think that's a really good thing for the hobby. And I really enjoy that, and I do enjoy greatly reading different ideas people have, and then I'll take the game for a play, try them out. That's really good. again, just props to all the different ideas. And I thought Matt's ideas were really great, and you can see some of his ideas here have made their way into his Tunisia game as well, which in my previous video, very clearly I enjoyed that game a lot. So yeah, great stuff. So just some concluding thoughts really. What I liked about the game, quality of the product's really nice, components are great, the blocks are hard-wearing, stickers wear, the map, all that. I've had this number of years now, played it a whole bunch of different times. Has all the good things about block games. So Fog of War when playing 2-player, it's always a lot of fun because your opponent doesn't know the contents of the block until it gets revealed, which is great fun. Some of that is lost in the solitaire. I enjoy playing block games solitaire because I enjoy these periods of history, and I enjoy playing out different scenarios and what ifs, as it were. The mechanics are straightforward. Combat works well. You have to pay special attention to the contents of the hexes on the sort of environment. So the terrain of the hex, and it's cumulative, so it's quite some interesting mechanics there. It does make some of the from a gameplay point of view, without giving anything too much away, there's a nice sort of strategy for the player to think about. The resource points are really cool, how you use those to bring in previously defeated blocks back into the game, or to sort of bring up damaged blocks back to their full strength, etc. That's a really nice mechanic, and those are mechanics that are shared across the Holdfast, the range of games in the system. So once you've learnt one set of rules, they apply to most of the games in that system, which is great. And a game you can play in an evening. For me, that's one of the things. That's probably one of the most important things I like about the game, is I can flip through the rules, set it up, play, finish the game, the whole North Africa campaign in an evening comfortably, which is great. I love long playing games too. But sometimes if I'm working, I don't want to leave a game set out for a week. I just want to play something in an evening. That's where these sort of games come into their own, I think, for me. And then finally, for all the problems that the game has around its balancing, I think the ideas that people have put in on the board game Geek from experience, I think, are really great, and they definitely add a lot. And I enjoy that. For me, that's part of the hobby of wargaming, is learning how to take a set of mechanics for one game and sometimes improve on them to make the experience a richer experience, or to add more elements of decision making within the game. It's really cool. So I like that. I get that's not for everyone. A lot of people maybe don't want that. They want a game out of the box. That's it. That's cool. I get it. But for me, that part of being part of the hobby, being part of the community around design, and trying out people's ideas as well, which is great, and I like that. So, and then the last thing I probably would say, the map it's nicely mounted and it's nicely done. It's definitely, again, I think if I compare this game, which is unfair, but bear with me, if I compare this to the Tunisia game, there isn't the movement, if I'm being honest, like there is in the Tunisia game, just simply almost by the fact of the board and the historical setting. So it's not a game of great movement like Tunisia is. However, if you're in the market for a North Africa block game that you can play in an evening, that's got good production values and has got lots of community ideas, then don't write this off, is what I would say. It isn't necessarily a game straight out of the box for everyone. I totally appreciate that. But I've enjoyed playing this solitaire. I've enjoyed playing it 2-player. I've enjoyed playing different people's ideas of how to make the game better. I would say to Worthington, it would be great to do a second edition, because I'm going to say this is the first edition. I think they've only done a second edition with some of Matt's ideas incorporated, and maybe some of the ideas from the community incorporated as well, and kind of give the rules another sweep and go over. And I think that would really help this game a lot. But they're all there on the Board Game Geek for everyone to find. So yeah, so I think that's probably my final thoughts. Like I said, North Africa campaign in an evening, great production, block games, love all that. So yeah, for that, I enjoy the game. Yeah, I've enjoyed the game a lot. That's it. Thank you very much.